Welcome to Tech and Thrive, where we explore the intersection of technology, well-being, and performance. Our goal is to uncover the stories of pioneers and entrepreneurs who are not only shaping the future of tech, but also prioritize balance, creativity, and purpose along their journey. My name is Kimia, and today we are honored to welcome Lida Ahmadi, a Swiss serial entrepreneur with a background in business and venture building. Lida has co-founded and successfully exited ventures like Snäx, a healthy snack subscription brand acquired by FELFEL, and worked in the foodtech space through Sprouted. She's now the founder and CEO of MONIX, an early-stage healthtech startup developing personalized continuous hormone tracking technology for women. Lida is also a dedicated speaker, mentor, and advocate for female entrepreneurship and innovation in women's health. Her mission with MONIX is to bring visibility, data, and dignity to a space that has been underfunded and overlooked. Welcome, Lida.
Thanks so much, Kimia, for having me here.
Yes, it's very excited to have you. I have to actually tell you a little story before we begin. So when we founded our company, it's now also a year ago, Kiana, together with my sister, I was actually looking into other female entrepreneurs and your name came up. And I remember that back then is when I sent you a LinkedIn request. I'm very grateful that you accepted. And I also found it so nice of you to get back to me when I told you about the podcast and everything. So I'm very, very excited that this episode is happening. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you also for having me here. Very excited.
Nice. I think we could maybe start off with your founding journey. Can you walk us through your entrepreneurial journey and then also from Snäx to Sprouted to now MONIX?
Sure. I think I've been in this space since over 10 years, right? And I realized, I'm old now and it's already been this long. But actually, it started during the university where I had a first venture. Basically, I helped also my brother-in-law with building a digital app. Back then, that was the first time I came upon, venture building or let's say entrepreneurship while I was studying accounting and finance at the University of St. Gallen. And I think that sparked a little bit this flair for, building something from scratch and then a digital platform, a product. And I took that with me until graduation. And I think I was then between, the decision, do I want to apply for a job? I did apply for a job. So, I think things are different now with St. Gallen. But back then, everybody was either after graduation ending up in consulting or in banking.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate. I was there from 14 until 17. So that was right.
It was
consulting club and all of these things were very popular.
So entrepreneurship was not really a topic back then. I think it changed now. But so I did apply for several jobs, consulting jobs. I got even one. I signed and I was about to start. I think 1 week before starting, I decided to not do it, not to show up. And then I called my boss, told him, listen, I decided I want to be self-employed. So my brother had come to me, I think a month prior to that, and told me, let's start a business together. And it was an e-com in B2B telecommunication. And then I was back and forth between, should I do that? Should I really start a consulting job? And then I think that was basically the turning point and the starting point in my entrepreneurial career. And since then, I've been in the space. So I've done this business first. And then I joined after that. I had a little bit of another path after my first business. I spent some time in China. I worked on the investment side of the things. And then I came back and then I joined a venture studio called Striber. I think they're even in the building, to be honest with you. They have an office here. So they were looking for entrepreneurs that had founded before. So the job was basically building MVPs for corporates, right? They had this big corporate client, Migros, and our job was basically build an in-house venture studio for Migros, which then later on became Sparrow Ventures. Maybe you've heard of them as well. So, and then carving out, new businesses, new startups for the corporate from the studio. So that was basically how I started to do my last startup, Snäx, which was a spin out of this venture studio of Sparrow Ventures / Striber. And I've been doing this from 2018 until 2023. So we were really building. I started this as a one-woman show. So and then we validated the problem, the solution. We built an MVP. We carved it out. We raised fund with the big corporate, and then I grew the company throughout Corona. I mean, that was also an interesting time. And then in 2023, so Migros decided not to invest further and to sell it. So then we got acquired by our main competitor, FELFEL. That's when basically my food journey. Well, no, it didn't stop there actually. So, but the Snäx journey stopped, and then I continued with mentoring early stage startups. I was part of different programs here in Europe and also in Switzerland, being, mentors and judge. And at the same time, I started to take on some mandates with foodtech corporates and SMIs to advise them on venture building, innovation, right? A little bit digitalization, all these kind of topics for like a year. But at the same time, I knew this is not what I want to do for the long term. I was missing, the entrepreneur path, the building a tech startup. And I knew I need to find my next thing. So then I did found my next thing, and that's MONIX, what I'm doing now.
That's so inspiring. Just a question. So once Snäx was acquired by FELFEL, you didn't stay on, right?
No.
Yeah. Was that your decision, or?
I think, it was like not that kind of an exit that we know from a lot of, this big tech startup exits, where you have then to stay there as the management, and then you have your earn out time. For us, it was because the FELFEL already, he's like they were doing exactly the same thing as we. They had their own technology, they had their own fridges, they had their own management team. So it was an asset deal, which means they took over the things they needed, right? And I mean, to be very transparent, it was also the clients, the portfolios that of the clients that were interested. They took off the brand, so it was also basically to shut down the competition, right? So in that sense, but for me it was clear I don't want to go, even if it would have been an option. Yeah, it was out of question that I would continue and go work for the competitor. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. And maybe on the note of coming out of a venture builder, right? When you were talking back then, Striver, now Sparrow Ventures, right? What was the difference when you founded this startup in this ecosystem, so Snäx, versus now founding, for instance, MONIX? Do you still do it with a venture builder, or did you now do it completely on your own?
No, that's completely like starting from scratch again. Doing it the normal way, I would say, not like as part of a venture studio or corporate environment. Yeah. And I mean, the Snäx experience was different because also it was different to what I was doing with Endline. That's my first business, which again also was like a bootstrap kind of a business, right? So I've seen different kind of venture building, right? And the corporate venture building was interesting as well. It's different. And now it's back to square one.
Yeah. And in retrospect, which type of building is most suitable for yourself, or you like best?
What I'm doing right now. So really like being, independent and doing your own thing, building your own business with a set of co-founders, or like one or two co-founders, where you have the autonomy. And it's harder as well because both of the things, they have their advantages and disadvantages, right? But I think even the corporate venture building or being like a spin out of a corporate, something that has not been validated yet, right? It is still, a lot of venture studios, they're recommending it, they're working with corporates, but in practice, it doesn't work that well for several reasons, which is another topic for itself, right? I don't want to go too much into the detail, but I do feel innovation and entrepreneurship, it should happen outside of the corporate world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's always these like entrepreneurs, right? I do have a couple of friends who have similar roles to that. And then I also have a friend of mine who we've grown closer over the past year, but she basically also started her own consultancy, or let's say now it's a venture studio, but she's basically a boutique venture studio that supports successors when they take over companies, and then also always focused on innovation. So how can you, for instance, spin off something from a very traditional company? So as I said, more like the entrepreneur side. Yeah. And for her, it's very suitable, I think. She really enjoys it. Yeah. But I also get, obviously, that the other type of building that you're doing now is, you're much less dependent on another party, right? So you have full responsibility on the one hand, of course. So if something fails, it's definitely on you, even though I would probably say if you're an entrepreneur, they're also going to blame it on you. Absolutely. But on the other side, you also have the freedom to do what you actually want, right?
I think it is exactly. It's an important point. What you're mentioning here is the ownership question as well, right? So in a corporate environment, or if you have a corporate startup, the big owner is the corporate, right? So you are you own your work and everything. If you're lucky, you get some shares as well. But then it's not entirely yours. And I think that is also one of big difference, right? That you as a founder, if you're like a full-blood founder, right, an experienced entrepreneur, then this is something that you require and you need also in your work. You need to have this ownership of, you have equity, right? It is your business. So yeah, it's different. And I knew while I was doing it, I'm gaining a lot of experience. It's a different kind of experience. I was very grateful also because we had this big corporate during a pandemics, right? And we would have never survived if we were an independent small startup, because literally it was 2 years and we were doing something during a time that, a service that nobody was asking for. And so that helped for sure to have this big corporate in your back that is backing you and supporting you. And for that, I was very grateful. And then beside of that as well, you get a lot of other different kind of experiences, right? Even for me, having spun out a startup from a venture studio has taught me a different way of venture building, because before, you always say as a founder, you learn things by doing them, right? But then I went through this really business school, kind of like venture building school with Striber, and I'm very grateful to them because they had this methodology of building startups and ventures, and it was very fact and data driven.
Mm-hmm. So you have an actual structure, right? Often founders are just like, okay, now what am I going to do next? And just try to fight all of these fires that have come up at the same time, ideally. So I think, that's super cool that you got so much knowledge from that.
And this training, this is what I'm carrying on now also in building MONIX, right? This excessive data-drivenness and factual doing, and not deciding on gut feelings, but actually being collecting the data that you need, right? And now that I'm in a scientific field, it matters even more to have this critical thinking, which I didn't have before, because a lot of times when you're first-time founders, you're so in love with what you're doing, right? You're like, this is it, and I'm gonna build it. And then when you look at the data, why do startup fail? One of the main reasons is you're building something nobody's really asking for. So in order to avoid that, you need to follow this process of hypothesis, then validating, disvalidating, and then iterating and pivoting until you really build something that you can scale, there is a business model, people are asking for.
Yeah, the most important thing, I guess, especially at an early stage, is always getting more and more feedback, right? To really focus mainly on your customer. Absolutely. And what they actually want and not what you want. Yeah. Even though maybe I forgot who said it, but it goes kind of like, okay, either you're going to found a company based on a need in the market, based on your passion, so something that you're very passionate about, or a pain, either your pain or someone else's pain that you've experienced. And ideally you have all three, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this is exactly what I'm also, when I teach entrepreneurship to to how I saw this is like also this business school. This is the first slide, basically. Why do entrepreneurs start? And it's exactly what you're saying is either you have own needs and the problem, or it's a need of others that you observe wherever you are. So that's very important, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get the idea of starting something in this female health space with MONIX? Because it is a little bit different than building things in the food space, right?
I think after Snäx and Sprouted, I was a little bit done with food tech. I was like, it was a great experience, but to me, it was also a business that I didn't really align internally with it. I mean, it's also tough with food. The food waste is really another topic, right? That I always I was like, this is something you need to take care of. You're in the space of producing food, and that's a bigger topic than I could handle back then. So I said, until I don't figure that out, I will not touch the food, especially the food manufacturing and producing and food service system anymore. And then basically I wanted to tap into a new market, right? A new industry. It was a long research. I mean, I took my time to dive deep into whatever is available. What are the opportunities? I had a lot of talks with founders and ideas. I looked into SaaS, I looked into FinTech, but nothing really sparked anything in me. So nothing was really intriguing. And I was like, okay, do we really need another SaaS, or do we really need another app? So I think I was in the lookout for something bigger, something with more impact. And then I sat 2 years ago in this TED Talk. It was a woman TEDx event in Zurich, and different women had different topics to cover. And one of them, unfortunately, I forgot her name. She was a scientist and a researcher, and she was presenting some data about women's health, and then this massive gap that we have based on historically, basically, exclusion of women in studies, right, in clinical studies.
I mean, it's so much harder to measure something if it has a cycle and then find women who have the same cycle and then test them, right? That was too much work, apparently, back in the day. Yeah,
so exactly. This is where basically this whole thing started. But for me, because I've never had really touch point with healthcare, right? I mean, this is the only time you're really thinking about it is when you have an issue with your own health, right? That's as far as it goes. But then I sat there, and for the first time I heard this, and I was like, how is this possible? We are like living in 2023 back then, and everything is based on male health, and all the studies and drugs especially has been made with men. So that's when something started then, and I dug deeper, and I wanted to see what is happening in terms of entrepreneurship, startups, what is out there. I came up on the topic of menopause, and then I had a few talks with founders, and but what I realized is that most of the existing solutions or startups, first of all, they were all early stage, and second of all, most of them were tackling the issue more from like an educational, let's say, wellness angle, and not really diagnostic and therapeutic, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when, within this research, I found Francois, my co-founder, who has been in the women's health. I mean, he has a history there. He's been working for Merck, for Abbott. He's been part of the glucose monitoring, the Freestyle Libre, the first one that got launched in South Africa. So he's originally from South Africa. And he saw the massive impact it had on, people with diabetes. And he thought, why don't we have that for women and measuring hormones continuously? So that's how, he had the idea. And then I met him, and this is how it started. So it grew also over time. It was not like instantly, oh, I love this, let's work. But because, it started a little bit like as a chain of actions and events. And this is how I ended up in a completely new field, new industry, with a big scope.
I still love that at the end of the day, you are a woman, so I feel like the product is still also somehow based on a need that you yourself feel, right? Mm-hmm. I guess you yourself would love to see where your hormones stand. I can only speak from experience. Getting your hormone like properly diagnosed or measured is such a pain.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, then some of them you can take in the morning, some of them only in the afternoon and whatever. And then probably depending on what you've eaten or how you slept, it's going to be different again. So I personally have endometriosis. So female health has always been a really big topic of mine. And then depending on my cycle, I also get very bad migraines. So I'm very aware at which part of my cycle I am at every step of the way.
Yeah.
But I have also experienced maybe skipping a cycle, and then I wasn't sure what the problem was. And because I only then had an appointment with my doctor afterwards, he was also like, well, honestly, I cannot help you. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And that was very frustrating, because if I had a device at that moment who would have told me, for instance, where my hormones were, maybe I could have identified the cause. Yeah. But because I could only get an appointment maybe a couple of days later, there was no chance to, in retrospect, say it has been because of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
So that would actually be something that I would love to have.
You know, it's interesting you're saying that, because, what you're saying, we hear all the time. So if we pitch MONIX to women, it's like out of question. So women get it immediately. They get the need, and I think this is for me the denominator why I'm so convinced of what I do here, and why it's so purposeful for me and the personal mission, because I hear constantly, and it get validated in what we're building is really important. Especially, if you look at the broader female health, yes, but then on the specific condition, as you say, endometriosis, which is huge. A lot of women, 10% of women have that, right? We have polycystic ovary syndrome, another hormone disorder that also, affects a lot of women. We have high risk pregnancy. So there are so many spaces within the female health.
Yeah, also menopause,
they need
right?
it. Exactly. Yeah. Menopause is another huge space, very, very underserved. And there is not enough research yet. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
I'm just also, again, speaking of from experience with my mom, who for a really long time didn't know that you can supplement with hormones once you're in menopause, like the first 10 years or something, you're able to actually supplement or start supplementation and then continue with it. But for her, it's the same thing. So one day she's like, I feel a lot of tension in my breasts, for instance. I'm not sure what it is. The doctor says, try a little bit less estrogen. Yeah. Okay, what does a little bit less mean? So I've seen it firsthand, like how much of it is just trial and error and not actual, what you've been saying, factful data that based on that, you make decisions.
I think, this is exactly the problem we're tackling. We're always saying it's a hormonal health problem, but it's a woman's health problem, right? And it's a systematic, broader problem when you look at it. And I've mentioned it earlier with this massive gap in healthcare that women has been excluded, right, from research, and we now feel it, and it hurts that this data gap, it hurts, and now we have to catch up, right, with decades of research that has been neglected. And therefore today, so it's not only the diagnostic tools that are missing, but we don't have actual data, right? We are even gynecologists and women that go through menopause, there is so little data out there that all these clinicians and doctors can work with to help, that you can't properly help people or women yet. So what needs to be happen is that we find the tools, the diagnostic tools that are actually measuring the hormones the right way with the fluctuations, something that can build patterns, right? And make a difference between the ratios of the hormones. And we don't have that today. And that's why it has not been possible so far to build the data and the research. And this is something else that we're, of course, hoping that our wearable patch can accelerate and change also, because then you can run all these studies in parallel, right? You can start basically also building baselines and building, personalized hormone profiles and start to learn from that. And then you can derive the result into the different spaces, and menopause or perimenopause is one of them. Endometriosis, as you say, another thing where, a massive, and you've already said yourself, one of the biggest issues is it's delayed, like the diagnostic happens delayed, sometimes up to 7 years, because women don't know that they have it.
Yeah.
Right? They just live with the symptoms and with the pains and with the hurt, and
they think it's normal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're also being told it's normal, by the way. I mean, until my appendix almost burst, nobody believed me I had endometriosis,
crazy,
even though I had history in my family.
Yeah.
So when I think I had appendicitis when I was 15 or 16. And before that, obviously, I got my period around, let's say, 12. And my periods had always been super heavy, very, very painful, except actually my first period was okay. And then it started.
Yeah.
I was missing school every single month for 1 week. And that was normal. And I went to my doctor and she was like, yeah, just take painkillers. It's normal. It hurts. And take the hormonal pill. Yeah. It's gonna shorten your cycle. Then we can control it. It's normal that it hurts. And then I had appendicitis. They told me it almost ruptured. It had been inflamed about 10 times, and the operation took almost 4 hours to remove my appendix.
Wow. That's crazy.
Because the endometriosis had grown all over my back, was full. Yeah. So they had to remove it. Yeah. And then finally I could tell my gynecologist to basically fuck off, right?
Yeah,
I was like, you see, I've been telling you this whole time. And then obviously I switched my gyn and now I have an amazing doctor and everything. But I think especially back then, I mean, that's also like 13 years ago. Oh my God, I'm also growing older. But back then, I mean, it was just normal to have period pain, and it's not.
It still is, and I'm so sorry to hear this story, right? I mean, you're one of a million women that really cover this kind of story, and they're telling us, and this is not, a unique story. A lot of women experience the same thing, like really this people think you should just go through it and it's okay, and it's, just deal with it. It is normal, right? And this is a massive issue, and how women's health has been treated, and still, I mean, now we're in the shift and things are moving and happening, but this is where we come from, that for decades, we just said the symptoms, they're normal, like there is no urgency or need to treat them or find a solution for them. So we've just dealt with it so far. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Has there been an increase in these kind of diseases, PCOS and endometriosis and co, over the past couple of years? Have you looked into that?
So I'm not a scientist in our team. I don't have the answer for that. I just know that currently, it has always been an issue. And also another big issue is the data in women's health. We don't have really consistent data also among the clinics. Even when we want to look into the data in IVF, there is not a persistent data out there. So it's so hard to also, catch the progress of it or how it changed over time. I just know that just significant amount of women, they suffer from endometriosis, around 10%. We have polycystic is another 10%, right? We have infertility where we start 1 in 6 couples, they cannot. And this has been always, significant, but just not out of scope for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with your technology, can you go into how you're going to close this gap between men and women's data? You were mentioning that the data collection, of course, but are you also going to give insights based on the data, or is that then the doctor who's going to give insights?
Sure. So with MONIX, what we're doing actually is we are developing the world's first wearable biosensor that it's like first of its kind that could measure hormones the way they're supposed to be measured, right, continuously in real time as well. So we are doing it in a minimal invasive way. It's a wearable patch. It's a very similar concept to the glucose monitoring. So it's a wearable patch you wear on your arm or abdomen, and then you get the data instantly on your phone and the clinician on their dashboard. And we are first building a medtech, so it's a B2B medtech space. We are starting in fertility business. It's IVF. It's because that's where timing is everything. So this is, I mean, you need to monitor 2 hormones really, really precisely to understand 2 major events, which is the egg retrieval and embryo transfer. And at the moment, the process of going through an IVF, and if you know women, they will tell you it's like a pain, right? It's with a lot of struggle. You need to go every second to third day to the clinic. You have the blood draw. It's costly. There are cancer circulation. You miss peaks. Sometimes you have to start over. It takes you also on average more than 1 cycle because of, the process is really not ideal. And this is why we start there. Because the urgency is the highest at the moment there. It's out of pocket business as well. And the value is immense there as well. So that's why we're starting basically in this closed environment in IVF B2B. And then the idea is that the clinician, can monitor remotely, so the women don't have to come to the basically clinic every day and take the blood draw, and they can stay at home, and the clinician has it on his dashboard or her dashboard, and then call the woman when it's needed, right? And when the specific events or the peaks or the surges are happening. So they call them exactly at the right timing, and they know exactly when to time these events. And then additionally, the women can also have their own app. So it will be subscription based, just to give them a little bit also the agency and the control over their data, and also, what's happening, because there is also a massive need from the side of the patients. They want to know, because so far they don't know, like they're basically managing everything blindly, right? Nobody knows what's happening inside your body or with your hormones. So there is this need. I want to also see what's happening, but the control, I think, is more, or the action lies on the side of the clinicians and IVF specialists, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple of interesting stats for you, which are actually, in my opinion, quite good, but obviously they can always be higher. So FemTech VC funding in Europe actually jumped from 14.5 million to 55.6 million between Q1 2024 and Q1 2025. So do you think this is going to be a lasting thing? So have people finally woken up to, hey, there's also 50% of the population who has not been looked into in too much detail? Or do you think it's just a hype?
I think I would say I'm somewhere in between. So I don't think it is a hype. I think it's the beginning of a movement. So things are things are changing now, and we're seeing that. And obviously, it is a huge increase, right, in numbers. It's only the European that we're talking about. So there is definitely something changing, which is good. But then at the same time, if we're putting that into perspective, right, we spoke about 3%. 3% of the entire, healthcare funding goes into women's health. And if you look also at some more stats and data from the last years, healthcare is one of the top 3 verticals that, overall VC investment went into. And then I think 2024, it was around 25 billion, between 25 to 35 billion, something like that. So from that, if you look at it, right, okay, I'm now talking globally, the 50 is not much, right? And then within this, only the 3% of it goes to women's health. And then I think within that, then there is, again, if you look how much is going through the hormonal health, which is even like a bigger space within the female health, is only around 1%. So it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not much, right? It's just relative. But we are starting to go in the right direction. So conversations are beginning, investors getting more interest in investing in female health or female-led startups more. I think for it to become more a lasting thing, a few things need to change. So one of the things at the moment, and I'm experiencing that myself while I'm also fundraising, and I've been fundraising in the past, 8 months as well, is female health is still seen as like a niche market, and it's
so funny, no?
It is funny. It's exactly so, and then it's also like more related to impact investment. So this is more under the vertical of impact investment. And, it has not become the target of the general list in VC funds. It's still very, very, a small space. It's a niche. And for it to become a lasting thing, that needs to be changed, right? It needs to also... bigger funds, more known and successful funds need to put the attention there. It needs to become a vertical within those funds as well. I think we also need to have more role models and exits from, these FemTech startups, so that it proves it is a business case, right? It is something you can scale, you can be successful, and you can get the return of investment, so that the investors feel more comfortable investing in that. So there are topics that we need to tackle for it to become a lasting thing. Yeah.
So then I hope that you will be at the forefront of that revolution, and I'm excited to see where it takes you. Yeah, I mean, I think women's health has a TAM of like $1 trillion, which nobody actually has really tapped into. What do you think is the reason that people still resist to invest in these types of startups? I mean, you mentioned obviously that there is not, let's say, a track record on ROI so far. What are some other reasons? Are they sexist, or I mean, what's going on? Or there's just not enough female founders? I don't know.
Again, I think it's a combination of things. I think when we start very generalistic, it's who is still investing, right? Who, like the VC ecosystem is still dominated. It's men, right? It's men. It's white men for such, and they don't really relate to the topics that female health startups are tackling, right? They don't have cycles, they don't have periods, they don't understand infertility. Maybe if they're in couples, like if they have a partner who has gone through these things and they're close to them, these are the only situations where they can relate and understand. So therefore, for them, it's still seen as something nice to have, right? It's not a must-have. They don't see the urgency because they're so far away from that. So I do believe it's still, one of the top reasons. And I also personally feel whenever we are in a room when there are more men than women, the women we don't have to convince, they immediately get it. It's more the men that are very critical, and they say, yeah, but do we really need that?
So what do you tell them? Why they need it?
The thing is, and I think that's another topic, is how do you present this? And for me, why it has been neglected. I mean, one of the reasons, you don't understand. You need to show these investors that it's not a niche. What we're talking about and we're speaking about, as you said, is half of the population, that there is a massive data gap and research gap and therapeutic and diagnostic gap. And we need to catch up with that. We need to show and we need to shift the conversations towards it's not a woman's issue. It's a societal, it's a healthcare system issue, right? Because once you shift the conversations and mention more the inefficiencies in the processes, that's what we do with IVF, for example. We show them the loss in cost, what happens when you have delayed treatments, when you have the wrong treatments, if you have the misdiagnosis, what happens at the workplace, you miss. I mean, you've told us yourself, how much you had to go to the doctor and miss the things. And then there is a massive loss in productivity, right? When you speak about these things, then it doesn't become a woman's issue anymore, or a niche issue, then it's bigger, right? And then you basically show them it is a global opportunity. I mean, and then it becomes urgent. So then the perspectives can shift and people then, treated it differently also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think definitely also a very good approach would be to show them based on this faulty data that we have been using to utilize, for instance, I don't know, another medtech product. Let's say maybe there's something that is different for men's and women's hearts, right? You can show, okay, when we used this device on women, actually more participants show the negative effect than the same age men or whatever, same height and everything. And then to show, okay, maybe we should actually look at the female data as well differently. If you have, for instance, a trial with men and women, and you will see that, or you already brought something on the market, and let's say it's a medicine, and it's only been tested on men, white men, back in the day. It's like an old medicine. Maybe can you also infer from that how many comorbidities have been created based on this faulty data? So for instance, women down the line, they develop other illnesses because they have gotten a way too high dose of a medication.
I think this is exactly what you're saying. I think also another strategy to change those perspectives is, and that's what you're saying, is data, right? With data, you need to lead with data. And there's a lot of research happening at the moment also in the drug monitoring, and that shows, how do women react, or what are the symptoms, and, symptoms, treatments is different for women and men. But it's such an early stage at the moment, right? Everything is in the early and foundational research stage that we are now collecting the data, and we're starting to understand that women's metabolism is different from men's, and we have different kind of reactions, even side effects, than men can have. And these conversations, these research is part of this movement and the shift that I said they are doing and contributing as well, and they're super important. And that's what we're doing, And I mean, to come back to your question, how do we also convince, or how do we change that or navigate the male dominant environment of VC world, is you need to lead with data. You need to. So one of it is, don't come and say it's just a woman's issue. Let's shed light on the other things and make it an economical bigger problem. And then the other thing is show the data, right? And what we're doing is we are showing the market size, right? We're showing them the massive opportunity that they can have from a investors' point of view, but we're also showing them we are actually talking to clinics, right? We are validating the problem. And we have LOIs that really, really word by word say, we need this, and this will add value to our, and then they sign it. And then they also say, we want to do pilots with you. So, because we get so often, is it really a problem, right? And that's the first, question. And the doubt is it? And that really, as I said, men cannot relate to it. So they think it's not a real problem, or it's like nice to have. And then if you come with data, and if you come with LOIs, and if you can validate it in that sense, in that way, then, they cannot say it's not needed. So it's not a real problem. So this is also how you could basically change the conversations. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So would you then go to a VC once you have already some type of proof that this actually is something that the market wants and needs, right? So you don't usually just go to a VC with a really great idea, because some VCs are, less in Europe. Maybe it's coming up a little bit more, but specifically in the US, sometimes you only need a PowerPoint and a vision, and then they want to invest in your product. Have you, with regards maybe also to the Swiss startup ecosystem, have you experienced that you need to really bring a lot of data and have the idea already kind of validated before you then go on to VCs and ask for funds?
I think it depends which vertical you're covering, right? Where you're, in which industry you are. I heard of a lot of AI founders. They didn't have anything. They had one slide, and they raised like 3 million. 4 million, 10 million. I think that's highly unusual in the life sciences and really like deep tech space, where you can basically just have an idea and have not proven the science behind it, right? And you don't have at least like a in vitro or like a lab proof of concept. And that is very, very different in the healthcare space. So yes, you do need some sort of data. The more you have, the better. But sometimes maybe it's enough if you have a research paper, right? Or it's a PhD of someone, and that could be enough that you've proven it, and now you're basically taking it out of the lab and making a commercial product out of it. And in that stage, you could already be able to raise funds. In our stage, because it's something that has not been done before, right? There is also so little research that we are at the moment. We are doing our own research, and we are generating, right? We're doing some foundational research, and every data that we get is, a progress. It's bringing us forward, and is valuable data that we can share and then say, listen, we are in the right direction. And therefore, yes, healthcare, I do believe you need some proof of concept before you can convince investors, institutional investors to invest in your idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what made you choose to found the company within Switzerland? We are a little bit known for, obviously, our healthcare sector. Is that one of the reasons, or is it because you have always built in Switzerland? Or what was the reason that you didn't say, okay, I'm going to take this to the US because there I will get many more funds and everything is just way faster, right?
I think by default, we are both of the founders. They are in Switzerland, right? We live in Switzerland. This is our home. This is what we know. But by default, also at the same time, Switzerland is the ideal market for us to do a medtech startup, because we have like a brilliant ecosystem. We have institutions such as the ETH, we have FELFEL, we have innovation centers like CSCM, who bring this expertise and the talent that you can access or have access to. We have brilliant companies such as, we have medtech and pharma companies like Novartis, we have Abbott, we have Roche. We have this ecosystem already that is good, and we can tap into the expertise, the talent that is really invaluable. So that's why. And then, of course, when you think about Swiss medtech, you have the Swiss precision, and it has a reputation of building one of the best, medical devices in the world. So it makes sense to be basically part of this ecosystem, part of this hub. And that's why also we have our lab in this, a life science hub in Allschwil. We're exactly next to Abbott, right, who was bring the CGM to life. So therefore, it makes sense. And then we do also have, and this is something that I'm experiencing now with this specific venture and with MONIX, is we have this ecosystem like InnoSwiss, right? We have where you can get non-dilutive funding. If you're working on an innovation like ours, you get so much help, and you get a lot of you can tap into this ecosystem, and you get core coaching, you get funding, and you don't have to give away equity. There are incubators at EPFL. You have also like specific female health kind of incubators, and they help you with their network. So if this was my first startup, honestly, I would, I'm getting held by hand and like basically guided, and you get so much help, and that's amazing. This is something that I'm experiencing now, and we're leveraging that for sure. I'm not sure. I don't know how the other hubs are working, but this is very unique and special in Switzerland. But then, of course, there are disadvantages as well, because we spoke about the funding, right? The funding situation in Switzerland. Also with business angels, my experience so far has been it's tough to get, especially also healthcare investors, to invest in early stage if you don't have much yet. They're very risk averse, very like they want to put, their bets on safe things, and therefore, I would basically keep the ecosystem, like the support ecosystem in Switzerland, but then combine it with the international mindset, start building relationships with international investors. Go to Berlin, go to London, because these places and hubs are also known for female health and FemTech startups, or even the US, and get also international investors involved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And what has building MONIX taught you personally about yourself? You said that you were never super into these types of topics until you realized at the talk that you were sitting in on. What has it taught you professionally, but also personally about you as a woman?
I think, MONIX so far has been one of the most humbling experiences, because I had to start over in a space that I don't know, right? And I came from venture building, fast move environments, consumer tech, and then I came into this highly scientific and highly regulated space, and I had to start over. I mean, build a knowledge base, get the medical terminologies right, understand the science. And it's a little bit like going back to school, right? But what it taught me is, yes, you can always start over and you can always get into a new field if you have the drive and the passion for it. And I think this is what helped me, is that with MONIX, I realized I'm really purpose driven. And I feel like for the first time, I'm building something that aligns so deeply with what I'm doing, because also it's something I can use myself. And I see the massive, massive impact it could have and the need, right? It's a big issue. It's a world problem. We're trying to
all of the
solve.
3 things that we said at the beginning are definitely covered. Yes,
exactly. And what I've been doing in my past with all the other ventures, even with Snäx, I'm really proud of that, and I've learned a lot. But yeah, they were different in their weight and intensity and their scope and the impact they created, and this is different. So this is what I've learned, that I'm really driven by purpose, and that basically is the reason why I'm keeping up with everything else that is a massive challenge, such as timelines are different, right? It takes you really like years to bring an innovation like that to the market. And I'm used to different things, so I learn to have patience for that. But the purpose and the impact is helping to build this patience. So yeah.
Nice. And I mean, you mentioned that you were coming from these very fast-paced environments and so on. I guess still nowadays, just being a founder and getting into a new field also requires a lot of resilience. How do you stay resilient? Are there some, I don't know, do you have, very easy, how many hours of sleep do you get? Do you move a lot? Do you do journaling? Do you have any routines that help you stay focused? And can you share them with us?
I think resilience, yes. I'm in all of my businesses. I've been following the same route a little bit. It's always, as you say, a lot of it is really soothing activities, something that really relaxes you. Then you have you can thank energy, have enough sleep, or follow also your morning routines, or take enough breaks and don't overexhaust yourself, and take breaks, take vacations, so these things. But then now I think what I understand under resilience is a little bit different, because it goes a little bit into what I mentioned earlier, because it's such a different market and different industry, and it works differently, that I had to shift a little bit my mindset also, and my expectations, the things that I'm usually used to. So one of those things is I had to redefine what progress means for me, because at Snäx, for example, progress was we getting new clients, the revenue increases, right? Things that are moving fast. So then you see the progress. And now progress can mean you have new data, an experiment in the lab that you did. These are small progresses, but small steps, that because the big ones, they can take years. And you need to basically also focus on those small things to have the resilience that it takes longer. And this is one thing, basically reshifting the mindset into how you define the progress. The other thing is to build an environment, because when you innovate, when you're in a space, what is like highly also criticized, it is, because sometimes, we get still a lot of no's, right? A lot of, does it really work? What are you doing? This is not gonna, and we've heard that so much in the beginning, and until you start to convince them, until you start to have this data. So what helps is to build like an ecosystem around your business, around yourself, that gives you the strength and resilience and supports you with it. So what it means is you have investors, you have a community, you have partners, you build a team that really highly believes in what you're doing, because that's when things get hard, those people can help you to basically shift your focus back, and you just then keep doing what you're doing. And if you don't have it, it's really hard, because you're trying to move the needle, right? And everybody's like, nobody's believing in it until you prove them wrong. But until you prove them wrong can take years. So what are you doing within these years? You build your little army of motivators and cheerleaders. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the team, anyways, also in my experience, that is also one of, or one of the reasons why I wanted to be self-employed is so I can choose with whom I want to work. I mean, depends on obviously the size of the company, but so far in my own venture, we're 6 people, and then I also have a CEO role actually in the healthcare sector. So I can relate with regards to having a company in that space, building something in Switzerland with this type of Swiss precision and everything. And there we are 15 people plus faculty. So I have come to really, really appreciate that the quality and the motivation of the people around you really are contagious.
Absolutely.
But also vice versa, right? So I feel like when you are, let's say, a leader at a company, you still have to somehow, even when it's hard and even when you are feeling down and get, let's say, all of these no's or you have a bad day, you somehow still have to be able to motivate everyone else. How do you do that? If you have like a bad day, do you then consult your co-founder or do you just pretend like everything is fine?
So at the moment, we're a very small team, right? That is easier. And we have partners also, and we leverage also external teams, and that helps. But for sure, I mean, I can also speak in my past. I mean, with Snäx, we were a team of 24 people, and it's normal if you as a founder have a bad day. And I mean, we went through Corona, right, which was one of the toughest time. And I think this is where I learned the hard way how to manage yourself and your emotions, and then, manage your team, because it was a unique experience, right? It basically nobody knows how to do it, and there is so much uncertainty, and there is a lot of doubt. There is a lot of not knowing, losing clients because, you can't really sell. And I think that was a massive training for me. So after that, I was like, I can manage anything now, But now with MONIX, I am consulting my co-founder. We have like a really transparent and honest way of sharing, and and it's like a partnership on eye level, and with each other we are like ourselves. We don't have to mask the fears, the doubts, the goofiness or whatever it is, and that helps. So and having like this kind of a co-pilot and a real co-founder that you can share these things, that helps because when he has a bad day, I can be the cheerleader, and if I have a bad day, he's the cheerleader, and we compensate each other's bad days. And I'm very lucky to have him, honestly. And yeah, I think that helps for sure. And in other if that was not the case, then how I dealt it at Snäx was more dealing with it myself, right? Trying to understand the emotions, not act impulsively or not decide on those days. Not basic. The worst thing is you carry it to your team, and then whatever you feel, they will feel as well. So manage and then let it pass, and maybe take it easy that day, and then the next day will be better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nicely said. So what is next for MONIX from like product development and public rollout, if you're able to share? I know you guys are at a really early stage.
We are at the early stage. So we are right now developing our MVP. So this is where all our focus is going to. A lot of research, a lot of lab work, and, building basically the first device that we want to then start testing on humans. This is as much as I can say about that. Yeah.
How do you hope that your work will impact the broader conversation about female health? I mean, for me, I obviously hope that you're going to be at the forefront in like 10 years and everyone's going to be talking about all of these very important topics who affect 50% of the population. But what is your opinion?
I think we've covered that, with all the topics we've discussed, from basically the data gap in women's health, but also hormonal health, giving the world a tool that measures hormones the way they should be measured, because this is what's lacking. Also, why we cannot gather the data, and why we cannot also start, running research and doing the studies, it will help for sure. With the diagnostic as well, with the different conditions that we spoke about. finally, clinicians, doctors can measure the hormones. They can start building individualized profiles. It will help the treatments, right? The timing will become better for different conditions. IVF, for sure, the success rates are going to increase. Hopefully, this is what we are aiming for. And which will have a ripple effect on the economy as well. We spoke about, women having delayed diagnostics. They are missing workplace activities and, this loss in productivity, that if you have better treatments, better timing, then of course the health, the overall health system is improving and benefiting from that. That's on the global scale. But then I think as well, what we're building is, as I said, we will be able to generate more research, more data around hormonal health, around the symptoms of, which symptoms are connected to certain hormone levels. And once you have the data, you can measure progress, right? And once you have the progress, that's when you attract more research. That's when you attract more investments, and that's when basically the whole ecosystem is benefiting from them. But with all that aside, I think the biggest topic or the biggest value we're creating is as well giving women a tool or giving them their agency back, in terms of we are putting them in control. We're giving them data and knowledge about their own bodies. So you can say that women are, in healthcare in general, you as a patient, you're always being like a passive receiver of information by your doctor, and you're dependent on them. But once you have the data yourself, right, you become the manager of your own data, and then you can also be part of these discussions with the clinicians. It's going to become more an eye-on-eye level conversations, where you're part of the decisions for your therapies and the treatments you're getting. So I feel this is going to be the biggest impact and change. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the part about giving us our agency back. I actually have a friend, she just launched her own health tech startup this week. You might have talked to her, I'm not quite sure. Her name is Karina, and she now founded this company, like this health companion also for female health, which is called Mayora. And basically she's doing a very similar thing, but they focus more on your cycle and then also how it impacts your gut, your skin, and other types of things. But her idea is basically also to give you your agency back. So for instance, for me, I was telling you about my endometriosis. Then I have this hemicrania continua, which is this migraine or headache illness. I also have some other stuff I'm not going to bring up now, but a lot of things are connected with hormones, I believe. And the funny thing was, always my whole life, I was sent from one specialist to the next, and none of them connected my issues. And I love that, for instance, her platform, but also your product could be used to then connect the dots between all of these comorbidities that I've been experiencing, right? This is why I'm such a big fan of TCM, because it looks at your body holistically. It doesn't just say, okay, you have a headache, go to the neurologist. You have endometriosis, go to your GYN. You have some other issue, go to whichever doctor. But then they look at your body, obviously from a very different perspective than Western medicine. But for me personally, actually, TCM has been the only thing that's helped me as a whole. Yeah. So not just taking a pill in order to dampen the pain, or, I don't know, using some sort of IUD to get regular periods or less pain, but actually putting some needles in my body, and somehow it works and it helps with all of these symptoms. So I am 100% convinced that your product is going to revolutionize this market, and I can't wait to actually try it out for myself.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is our mission, right? We're trying to do our best to accelerate also, because I know, and this is what I've been telling the team over and over, we need to make this possible as soon as possible, because women are waiting, right? It's not something that is negotiable. We know that it will change so many lives, and I think this is why, this is what fuels me personally also, because I am also somebody that has suffered from imbalances, hormonal imbalances. And I know, the anxiety that comes with it, not knowing. And also then when you don't get the help from the clinicians and from the doctors that you rely on, and they don't know what it is. And then you're basically tapping in the dark. And this is really not a good feeling. And having something that basically is helping within these topics and spaces, it's great, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we have a little bit of a closing tradition, which is this question: if you could give one piece of advice to aspiring entrepreneurs or innovators, what would it be? Or maybe also to your younger self.
So I'm going to be very specific and biased here, because I know, I could say now something like, be always yourself or go and do your dreams. But instead, I'm going to say that we need more business founders in life sciences and, more really entrepreneurs with experience that really tap into this spaces where it's very hard, it's regulated. And so from my own experience in healthcare, in life science, and even deep tech, I've seen that most of the innovators are either corporates or really like scientists or researchers, right? And that's valuable. I don't say they don't innovate, but the problem is then a lot of research and innovation sits in the lab. It doesn't make its way to the consumers and to the patients where it's actually needed. And the founders, tech founders, they're so busy developing the next AI platform. And I do believe the world doesn't need another SaaS product, but, there is bigger opportunities out there. They're like really impactful spaces. And don't be shy, don't just tackle those hard problems. Yes, they are harder. Yes, it takes longer. But I do believe these are the places where, the big opportunities also lie. And I would hope and wish that people with, experienced founders like myself, they find their ways to science. And if you do have a business background, then just bring it to science as well. Yes.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Lida. So where can people follow your work and learn more about what you're doing over at MONIX?
I think the best platform is LinkedIn, probably for a lot of people. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. I am putting an effort to share more and to create more content. So you can also follow us there, our business there. We share, the latest movements and things that are happening, the normal life of a startup as well. So, yeah.
Thank you so much really for your time. It's been such an inspiring conversation. I love what you guys are doing over at MONIX, but obviously I'm a woman with obviously some hormonal potentially problems. But I think I'm very excited to see where this journey takes you. And I feel like with your track record, it can only be a positive outcome at the end of the day.
Thanks so much. I appreciate your support. And thanks for having me again here. It was very blast to speak with you about these topics.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tech and Thrive. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to follow us on Instagram at techandthrive_podcast and learn more about our work at kimiana.co. If you'd like to support the show or be a guest, we'd love to have you. Just drop us a message at info@kimiana.co. Until next time.